Okay, let's talk about tools and supplies. It's nice to have a pair of clippers. You don't have to have them for grafting, but they're very nice, and if you're going to be growing fruit trees, you better get a pair of clippers. These are my favorite that I've ever used, the Barnell B808. They're lightweight, ergonomic, cushy. They have this like squeeze to release thing, and the only problem I've had is I had this latch start to wear out on one pair. And it is going to be a problem eventually, but it's not enough to be a deal killer for me, especially at the price. You also may need a saw. If you're going to cut anything, you know, up to 3/4 of an inch straight across, you definitely are going to want a saw. This is my favorite pocket saw for pruning, and I do a lot of forestry work and just, you know, whatever, all kinds of stuff with it. I love this thing. It's the Silky F180. And it's the coarser tooth. There's one with a yellow handle that has a finer tooth. The coarse tooth is a little more versatile of a saw. It's a great back pocket saw. It's super lightweight, makes clean cuts, very sharp. Okay, you definitely need a knife. You don't need a grafting knife. They're nice. They're easier to make controlled cuts with. If you're going to do a lot of grafting, you consider investing in one. If you're just getting started and you want to try grafting, small, thin bladed pocket knives are great, or pretty much any pocket knife that you can get nice and sharp, which this one isn't particularly. Razor knives will work, but you want one where the blade isn't too wobbly. This is a good example of one that is not very good because the blade is super wobbly, and when you try to make precise cuts, this blade's just moving on you all the time. Can you do it? Yeah, you could do it with a sharp blade, but it's not ideal. There's all different kinds of razor knives out there, so just, you know, if you use one, try to get one that really has a solid blade. First choice? No. Grafting knife's first choice. This would be probably my second choice. These knives would work if they're nice and sharp. In fact, my favorite grafting knife was made out of one of these little old hickory paring knives. I just cut the tip off at a slant like this, and I ground one side flat and then put a bevel on the other side to make a single bevel grafting knife. That thing was great until I lost it because, you know, it's the color of everything in nature. So it's sitting rusting somewhere in the orchard for the last 5 years. That's why I like this yellow handle. So again, this is the Victorinox floral knife or florist knife or something like that. I'll put links in the description. And it's on my Amazon store on skillcult.com as well. Prerequisite, has to be sharp. The knife has to be sharp. You're not going to make good controlled flat cuts with a dull knife, and they're going to be more ragged and heal slower, I think. This is Doc Farwell's grafting seal. It's basically a thick latex paint. Don't go out and buy a quart of this just to make your first few grafts. Get some latex paint. If you don't have any latex paint in the garage, grab a baby food jar and go visit your neighbor and get a little bit, and that should do fine. You can also use white glue, and there's other stuff you can use as well, but you know, you need something sometimes to seal different parts of the graft. We'll talk about that when we get there. Okay, what are you going to wrap your graft with? You want to wrap your graft nice and tight so that it doesn't move at all. And the ideal grafting material is going to stretch, because that means that it's going to conform to whatever you want it to, right? I can make this conform. I can keep switching directions. If, you know, this is sold as grafting tape right here, but it's a stiff cloth and it doesn't stretch or move at all. It's terrible. It's terrible grafting tape. This stretches, electrical tape stretches. This is cloth, but it's fairly flexible, so you can see it kind of moves in different directions. So I could make this work, but it wouldn't be ideal. The other thing is, if it's waterproof, that's nice because it seals the cuts. You know, it seals the graft so that like rainwater isn't going to get in there or anything like that. I use mostly this budding tape. It's actually made for grafting for budding grapes, and it's just, it doesn't have any sticky stuff, so it's not really tape, but it's just a stretchy strip of PVC plastic. It conforms well. It's thin enough that when the tree grows, it'll stretch a little bit and it won't just constrict the tree. This stuff is really common and it's almost the same, but it's just a little bit thicker. So this is more likely to strangle your tree as it grows up into July. But if you keep an eye on it, it's fine. And this is much more widely available. I think they call it tie tape or something. It's available in like gardening stores. Nurseries use it all the time to tie plants to stakes and stuff like that. This is flagging tape. You know, it works too. It's stretchy enough. and strips of plastic bag. The bags that manure and potting mix and stuff like that come in work great, and they're actually resistant to UV light, so that makes it even better. This is a toilet paper roll bag. I mean, there's all kinds of bags, but you want something that's thick enough that it's not just going to break, but it'll stretch a little bit, you know, as you use it. Electrical tape is common and it works well. The only thing is it'll stick to the scion. When you try to unpeel it, it could tear the bark off. So I would just say, if you use electrical tape, instead of unwrapping it in, you know, July or whatever, just take a knife and cut both sides of it. Like cut a couple places down it completely, so that eventually the tree will outgrow it and slough it off. And there's many, many more things you could use. You can use just some string and then seal it with a wax or something like that. You can improvise. Again, no need, if you're just making a couple grafts, don't go out and buy a whole roll of this plastic stuff, because you don't need it. If I did fewer grafts, I would just use strips of plastic bag, but I just do so much grafting and tying that it really slows me down to have to use like strips of plastic bag or something like that. Actually, we're not done because I forgot to talk about rubber bands. Just cut them open and you can use them to wrap the same way you'd use like a plastic tape. They're obviously nice and stretchy, so they'll stretch out as the graft grows. When you get to the end, just tuck them under themselves and leave it. Tags. I like to use aluminum printing plates. These are from the old school printers, you know, ink press printers. So look in your phone book, call those guys, someone that does printing, and they'll usually either give you a stack of them, they'll give you a few of them, or sell you a whole stack of them for like an aluminum scrap price, which is not very much. They're super handy. They're big sheets of thin aluminum. You can use them for vole guards, garden tags, and you can just write on these with pencil and it's indelible and it stays on there. Or you can also take just a sharp stylus and scratch the name in. Name. This will be readable for many, many years. You can punch a hole in it with a nail or something. For wire, I use old, just, you know, pieces of stranded wire. They look like this inside. You unwrap them, and then you don't have to buy anything. I've also used the wire from old transformers and just unwound it. The one warning I'd have with these is that when you put this through, twist it up tight right against the tag like that, and that way it can't rattle around as much and it won't wear out the hole, because they'll actually wear through eventually, flapping around in the wind. I make these quickie paintbrushes for grafting out of wild turkey feathers. You know, when I hunt turkeys, I save some of the feathers. Just wrap them with a piece of tape, cut the end off. That way you don't have to wash any brushes, you just use it and dose it.